And we have a couple more folks that I know want to come up.
Thanks for doing that before, you might not after. Okay, I made a few notes. I worked with the Burbank Leader, and we knew that we had a 22-year-old Caucasian woman who was on the jury. So I stood out there the morning of the verdict, and I was there for about 6 hours, and obviously she didn't want to be interviewed, so we let it go. But my real connection here is that this was my neighbor from 1982 until 1988. So Cato. These are his first headshots. I was learning to be a photographer. He was learning to be a whatever, actor, comedian. And so the reason I have his arms up like that, normally you don't do that for a headshot, he couldn't sit still. So I turned the chair around and told him to put his arms up because he was moving back and forth. And I'm thinking, this guy's never going to make it. You know, you have to be able to sit still for a photo. Well, anyhow, I did his first headshots, and he signed one for me. And this would have been about 1983. It says, "To Bonnie, the world's greatest neighbor."
Bonnie, thank you.
Okay.
We're going to do a little transition here because Brian Bland, Associated Press, retired. He's going to have a quick word, final word on O.J., and then he's going to mention a new book that he has, and then we'll get into remembering the two people who have passed on. Brian?
Bob, thanks. This seems to be book day. I'll get to that in a moment. But a real quick story about the radio people covering O.J. We were on the 12th floor, kind of sardined in together. And I just wanted to mention real quick about when the glove was introduced. The reporter who was sitting to my right leapt to his feet and said, "They've got him! They've got him now!" And I said, I won't mention his name because he still works for CBS, but his initials are Futterman. And I said, "Steve, this is the stupidest thing they could do. Start with the fact this guy's an actor and that he doesn't want to go to prison. There's no way the glove will fit. I don't care if it's a size 19 glove. You know, whatever it is, it's not going to fit him." And of course, you know, oh my gosh, I can't get my hand in there. So anyway, that was the reaction among the radio folks up there. I was with AP Radio at the time. Comic Relief. This is called Air. It's an anthology of stories about radio. I don't think there's any news-related stuff in here. But if you worked in radio back in the 60s, maybe the 70s, you will really, really enjoy this book. It's published by an outfit that's online called Hippocampus Magazine, but they have started to go into traditional publishing now. So a couple of years ago, they put out calls for anybody who worked in small market radio and the funny things that would happen. So the book has got all kinds of stories about crazy promotions, crazy station owners, the dreaded dead air, recreated baseball games that went awry. My own story is in here. That's from 1963. I worked at a station in central Illinois, first stereo station in downstate. But our challenges ran from thunderstorms to field mice to the aforementioned crazy owner. The book is available on Amazon. It's also available on the Hippocampus website. But why spend postage and why pay the cover price when for $10 you can have your own copy here today? So think about it. If you ever had anything to do with radio or small market broadcasting, I think you'll really, really enjoy this book. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
So we got Brian's book for sale, as well as Lorraine's. Lifetime of News is right there. And cash only, right? Both of you? Okay. Special discount price today only. All right. I need to take you on to people who aren't with us anymore. And we're going to honor both Tom Hatton and David Horowitz. And I'm going to start with Tom. What can you say? Everybody in this room knows Tom Hatton, or who he was, and the legend that he leaves behind. We had the luck of having him grace one of these lunches. These are pictures that were taken at the time. I'm sorry, I don't have the date right in front of me, but he was here once, and it was a surprise. He just turned up, and it was totally delightful. There he is again. He was 92 when he died in March. He remained one of the best known faces and voices ever in Los Angeles television. And you think of Tom, and you think, of course, of Popeye and KTLA. He was the host of the Pier 5 Club. Some of you are going to be old enough to remember that. And then he ran the Popeye Show, which together ran from 1956 to 1964. And later he hosted the Family Film Festival on Channel 5, and after leaving TV, he appeared in plays. Most notably, I remember him as FDR in Annie. Any of you see him on the stage? I think it was at the Schubert, from what I remember. Is that right, Melody? Yeah, I do remember that right. And later he was an entertainment reporter at KNX News Radio. And I have two clips for you here. The first is produced and directed by Joel. It's from KTLA's 40th anniversary show, and this is narrated by Stan Freberg, and it speaks for itself. So I will take you to that clip right here.
And Tom Hatton was with KTLA almost from the beginning, doing everything from news to announcing the dramatic shows. But for a generation, and today as well, Tom Hatton brings Popeye to Channel 5.
Okay, now treasure hunt time. As you know, the way we play our treasure,
A couple of years, from like 52 to 54, I never appeared on camera. I just did the morning, Good Morning, this is Channel 5, KTLA, the key station of the Paramount Television Network. We were the only station on the Paramount Television Network, but we evaded that by saying the key station. I did a Man on the Street show called Crash the Party. It was on every Friday night for a while, and they decided to go to different parties that were taking places, and supposedly we were not even invited. We were crashing the party. There was one at UCLA. There was one over at the old Florentine Gardens. There was one at the Las Floristas Headrest Ball. And it was my shot at fame.
I'm going to take you to one other tape. This was the opening of the Family Film Hour. Who did you say produced this, Joel? Joe Quazarano. Oh, Joe Quazarano. Is Joe here? I knew he was going to. He didn't come, right? He produced this. This is a little bit of the opening from Family Film Festival.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to a visit with the Munsters, the original gang of cheerful ghouls from the first go-round on television in the 1960s, and their very funny jump onto the big screen called Munsters Go Home. Now, you've seen this funny romp on our weekends together before, and what makes it even more fun to watch this time around is that, of course, the Munsters Today, the new series, has brought them back into popularity after, well, almost 20 years, and become one of the big hits in syndication, and as a matter of fact is seen on this very channel Friday nights at 7:30 and repeated Sunday morning at 8:30. I'm very glad you could join us today, and with the help of the Munsters, we don't even need the projector. Here it comes.
So we honor the life and the passing of a really great individual, Tom Hatton, and all of you who work with him know what a nice guy he was. Just a terrific individual. I never had the pleasure of working with David Horowitz. I knew him. He was terrific at what he did. I mean, when you think of consumer reporters, you think back to David Horowitz. He died in February. He was 81. He started at KNBC Channel 4 in 1973. In addition to appearing regularly on the Channel 4 newscast, David was well known for the Emmy Award-winning TV program Fight Back with David Horowitz. And before joining KNBC, and this is something I didn't know, but I read it in the Times, David was a writer for NBC's Huntley Brinkley Report and held several other positions with the NBC network. David's acclaim led to being a regular guest, and those of you who watched The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, you remember he appeared on there and appeared at himself in several TV shows. Here is the animated opening from Fight Back.
Fight back, don't let anyone push you around. Fight back, stand up and hold
David Horowitz was live on KNBC's 4 p.m. newscast on August 19th, 1987. And it was a few moments that made television history.
Channel 4 News, Nightside, #1 at 11.
Good evening. It has been quite a day here at Channel 4, and tonight security is being beefed up at KNBC after a gunman walked into our news studio right here this afternoon and on live television at gunpoint ordered consumer reporter David Horowitz to read a message live on television. Nobody was hurt. That gunman is in police custody tonight. And Jess's cover story takes a look at what hundreds of thousands of shocked Channel 4 news viewers watched on television on the 4 o'clock news. Jess?
Kelly, the man who had been permitted to watch the broadcast in the studio had given no indication of his intent. He had been sitting quietly until David Horowitz was ready to begin broadcasting his consumer segment.
Because, you know, one of the nicest things about shopping by mail order... Pardon me? What is this? Let me see what it says. All right.
He's got a gun to his back.
All right, well, let me read this. Folks, we have someone on the set who's standing here and would like me to read this copy which was just handed to me. You want to tell me your name or not? What is it? And Gary, where are you from?
At that point, the control room was ordered to go to black, kill the studio mics, and put up a standby slide. But Horowitz continued to read, and the gunman kept the gun in his back.
I was warned in 1981 by someone with connections at the CIA to stay off the computers, that they didn't trust people on computers. When I began receiving disturbing calls from my parents, which led me to believe that something terrible was going on, I was then forced into a mental hospital in Tallahassee, where I learned that my brother-in-law had been driven insane in the same manner that someone was trying to do to me.
The gun was a precise replica, and police, who by then had entered the facilities, made plans to deal with the situation. But when the statement had been read, the gunman placed the gun on the desk, and anchorman John Beard grabbed it. Burbank police wrestled the man to the floor. He has been identified as Gary Stolman, and he said he never intended to harm anyone. Indeed, the gun proved a fake. Horowitz, who appeared to maintain his calm throughout the ordeal, acknowledged his fair share of anxiety.
And I've covered enough hostage situations, and I've been in Vietnam, and I know that when someone points a gun at you, you do what they tell you to do and hope that someone's going to save you. You're thinking about your wife and your kids and your family, and you say, what am I doing here? Why is this happening to me? And you just try to maintain as much cool as you possibly can, because I realize that if you do anything out of course, as far as this person's concerned, I don't know whether the guy was a terrorist or a wacko or somebody that was trying to get even for something. You don't know who's there.
News director Tom Capra explained his order to pull the plug.
Is that we cannot allow people with guns or weapons of any kind to take a television station hostage. So the first thing you do is go to black and kill the mics to make sure that the message, whatever it is, never gets out.
Gary Stolman remains in custody. Charges may await a psychiatric evaluation. No one was injured, as Kelly indicated, and the principals involved are tonight regaining their composure. Security has been tightened to the extent no one is permitted in the studios without a permanent pass. Visitors' passes will no longer be accepted. Keith, Kelly.
All right, Jess, thank you. And a footnote to all of this, LA police say that all of their 911 lines lit up as television viewers watched what was happening and called to tell police what was happening.
You saw a shot of the control room at Channel 4 while that was going on. The director was Steve Rodriguez, and Steve is here today. Steve?
What started out as a normal day turned into something that most of us will never forget. And you've seen what went on here. From our standpoint, it was a normal newscast. We were about 40 minutes into the show, and we were coming out of commercial. And the first thing I remember is I asked the stage manager, I said, what the hell's going on out there? Get that guy off the set. And the next thing I heard was, he's got a gun. Well, NABIT was on strike at that time, so we had management crew. And at the same time, the camera operators all said the same thing. He's got a gun, he's got a gun. At that point, everything stopped. We didn't know what we were going to do. The producer, Nancy Valenta, who was a member but not here today, said, if we go to black, we don't know what he's going to do. So we kept the picture up. At that time, anything that was on the bus went out over the air. If we went to black, we didn't know what was going to happen. So we kept the picture up. We got a call from the news director saying, get off the air. Okay, boss says get off the air. We went to black. At that time, the only way you could change the picture from the bus was to go back into the racks and to pull a pin, which one of the maintenance guys did, but it took us several minutes. For the most part, we were trying to figure out, is this guy alone? What's going to happen? Is he a crazy person? Is he legitimate? Does he want to take over the station? At the time that Broadcast Operations Control saw the gunman, they went into a lockdown situation. We didn't know if he was alone or if there were other people. The time frame between when it started and when the police showed up is blank in a lot of our minds. NBC security was there, and shortly thereafter, Burbank police, both in uniform and in plain clothes, were there. And during the time that we were on the, well, we weren't on the air, but we were shooting the show as if it was on the air, they were asking us, can you tell us is it a real gun? I was asking John Beard in his IFB, John, can you tell it's a real gun? He was in the military. He kept on shaking his head, no, he couldn't tell. The police were saying, can you get a shot at the gun? It's close up here. One of the off cameras got a close up of the gun. He still couldn't tell. It wasn't until he put the gun down that John reached over and picked it up, and he knew by the weight that it wasn't a real gun. At that point, the police came in, took him off, and during that time when we were not on the air, the station was running promos and everything else, getting ready for whatever would be the next show. So for the next 15 to 20 minutes, they were gathering themselves as we were trying to figure out what was going on. There was a door between the booth and the studio, which is normally closed so that you don't have any noise back and forth. I remember somebody saying, lock the door. I don't remember who it was. We had police at both exits in the studio, and they were out in the hallway, from what I understand, after the fact. When it was over, talking to David, as calm as he was on the air, or appeared to be on the air, he was saying he was hoping that he'd be able to see his wife again. He had no idea what was going to happen, whether this person was going to shoot him. And in Tom's decision to go to black, it was so as not to put any message out. Unfortunately, for those of us in the booth, we didn't know what the ramifications would have been. So we just went along with it. And the practice after that was anytime you want to switch off, you can keep the monitors the same and you can still switch to black. That was one of the things that came up. The other was David Horowitz campaigning to indicate that the gun isn't real. This was the bright orange or yellow tip on any BB gun or toy gun or something else. You'll notice in that shot there was no indication that it wasn't a real gun. It was a real replica as far as we were concerned. But part of the campaign that David went into was, let's make sure that the people don't know that it is a real gun and that nobody gets hurt thinking that it was. So it was something that we all lived with for all these years, and we still talk about it, but it's easier now to think back of what it was like than what we went through at that time. I will say that it's ironic in this News Geezers meeting that not only was I director of David Horowitz, I was director when the Slow Speed Chase was on at KNBC. I played golf with Lance Ito at a Fritz Coleman golf tournament many years later. And Tom Hatton, one of my first jobs as an IA stagehand was working on the Tom Hatton Show. And I mentioned that to him at a book signing. So the irony of all that coming full circle at a Geezers meeting. Thanks to Bob and Joel and everybody else for showing up. That's it.
You all have been extremely patient. I'm going to keep you for about 2 more minutes. We have the room until 3 o'clock, so feel free to kibitz. Kibitz after that, they have an event here, so we'll have to, we can always work our way out to the parking lot too. It was a joy having you here. Let me just review what is coming up in the months ahead, and I hope, especially those of you who are here for the first time, you'll come back and join us again. On August 3rd, we will convene here at the same location once again. It will be the 50th anniversary of the Tate LaBianca murders. I think only about a week away from it, actually, is the actual date. I think it was August 9th. Anybody want to correct me? Sorry? August 9th. I had it right. Okay, August 9th. So I'm sure Dave will be here, and all of you, and obviously there's not as many people, let's be honest, that worked that story as worked Simpson. But if you would like to participate, please let me know. I'm going to ask Linda Deutsch, and she's already volunteered to, she will be here, and she will also come up with some other people who were involved in the case then who would like to reflect back on it. So that's that. The photo again is from the Herald Examiner, Herald Express, LA Examiner, going all the way back through the history of the Hearst newspapers here. And on Saturday, November 2nd, which will be our last get-together here in 2019, our guest will be Wendy Horowitz. Wendy is right there. She's writing it down so she doesn't forget. And Wendy is the archivist with a photo collection at the Los Angeles Public Library, lapl.org. There are some wonderful, wonderful pictures on there. And the two of us are going to get together and try to distill however many we can fit into this program, and Wendy's going to talk about them. So, and she'll also be back for the Manson lunch to take us through the rather extensive library of Manson material. Wendy.
I was going to mention anybody in News Geezers that wants to send you an email of something they'd like to see, I can look it up and include.
Sure. What a good idea. Yeah, they've got everything. How many thousand pictures?
2 million.
2 million. How many are online?
Only about 30,000.
That's a lot for us to look through. Absolutely. So I'll see you on August the 3rd. The website, please stay tuned to it because I always have the latest on there, is newsgeezers.com. And the very final thing is please return your name tags. Thank you for being here. You all make this worthwhile. It's a joy. Bless you all, and good night.